Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Skills and Abilities. Today, we're going to go over a rather simple one, but also a pretty cool one, and a very powerful one, too. And that is known as Summon Resistance. Summon Resistance is very simple in its what it does, but it is very powerful in what it helps your army achieve. So the first thing that you need to know is that your minions do not suffer from the penalties of resistances for Nightmare and Hell difficulty. So their resistances don't go up and down like ours do for that. Your minions can actually also be immune to specific elements. Now, to achieve this, they have to reach above 99% to that particular resistance, which is not impossible. And summon resistance is one of the ways that you can get your monsters there. Now, granted, negative resistance effects will still apply to them, so things like conviction, for instance, or lower resistance can bring their resistances down and allow them to be basically broken out of their immunity. And it doesn't say that they are immune. So unlike with monsters, when you're running along and you see like a cold monster that's immune to cold, and you're like, okay, well, I can't kill him with any cold damage because he's immune to cold. It's not going to tell you that your clay golem is immune to cold, for instance. But if you have a high enough amount of summon resistance in combination with the clay golem's already high cold resistance, you can reach a point to where your clay golem will be immune to cold damage. The cold resistance that clay golems have in a native form is 50%. So you only need an additional 50% resistance to reach the point where he will become immune to all cold damage. He also becomes immune to the chilling effects as well when he reaches this point. Now, each one of the golems has a different innate resistance. Obviously, the fire golems is fire resistance. The iron golem has an innate poison resistance of 100%. He's actually immune to poison. And he has a lightning resistance of 50%, which means that with a mere 50% lightning resistance, you can make him immune to lightning and poison. The blood golem has a resistance for 20% poison, 20% magic, which unfortunately means that he is not going to be immune to anything on his own. The clay golem has 50% cold at 20% lightning and 25% physical DR, which means that he can be immune to cold, but he will not be able to be immune to lightning. And each of the golems has their own specific specialty. Now, the iron golem is unique in this because the iron golem's resistances can be adjusted depending on what you summon him from. So one of the easiest ways to make an iron golem immune to pretty much everything is to utilize a paladin shield. So if you want to just make a really tanky, really hard to kill iron golem, the best way to do this is just simply to find a 3-socket paladin shield that has 45 all res. Then what you do is throw Ancient's Pledge in it, and then summon your iron golem out of Ancient's Pledge. His resistances will be so high that he will be immune to fire, lightning, cold, and ice. Fire, lightning, cold, and poison. He will be immune to all 4 elements. He will not be immune to physical, obviously, and he will not be immune to magic damage, but he will be immune to basically all 4 elements. And in combination with your summon resistances, his resistances will be so high that there is pretty much no chance that he's going to get broken by most like conviction and lower resistance curses, because he's going to be overcapped by quite a large degree. And this is one way that you can make an iron golem extremely tanky. Now, let's cover the ability itself, which summon resistance is, deceptively simple. When it starts out at level 1, it is 28% resist all. It does go up relatively quickly, so you go from 28 to 34, 34 to 39, 39 to 44, and before you know it, with moderate plus to skills, you can reach a pretty nice amount, as you can see, of 65% with just 1 point. Now, early on, before you get all these massive plus to skills, before you have your torch, before you have your Annie, these are cheated Annies and cheated torches, by the way, before you have all this beautiful plus to skill equipment, you're going to have to dump a couple points in. So to give you an idea, let me go ahead and take off some of this plus to skill equipment and show you what it's like to have summon resistance with no plus to skills. So as you can see, with only 1 point, we have a meager 28%. Now, usually what I recommend with summon resistance is that you put in at least 5 points early on, because that will get you to a very nice 47% all res, and it will help keep your army alive for a prolonged period of time, so that you don't have to worry about them constantly dying. 5 points seems to be about the magic number to assist you through the early levels. Now, granted, once you level up and once you start to get all your plus to skill equipment, once you start to get, things like your Shako and your +2 amulet and maybe a couple Soges, and you've got your summon skillers and all this other beautiful stuff, you can respec and take those points out. You don't need to leave them in there once you have a massive amount of plus to skills, because honestly, the summon resistance ability doesn't have really good bonuses for high levels. It tends to hit really heavy diminishing returns around levels 22. I want to say, no, 20. Around level 20. It's pretty heavy diminishing returns around level 20. And to show you what I mean, let me go ahead and grab these doojanks back here. I'm going to throw my plus to skill equipment back on. And you notice now we're at level 23. It's at 67%. And I put a point in and it goes up to 68. And then it goes up to 68 again. And then it goes up to 68 again. And then finally, after a couple points, it goes up to 69. And then it stays at 69. And it stays at 69 again. And then it goes to 70. And literally multiple points won't even bring it up by 1% past a certain point. And so dumping points into it has very little bonus past a certain level. And like I said, around level 22 is where things get really bad, and you just start to get basically no return for massively dumping points into it. And it's rather unfortunate because summon resistance is one of those skills that is decent to even get 1 extra percentage, because as you can see, you can literally make your minions immune to things with high resistances. But it's just really not worth dumping points into when, number one, plus the skill equipment is more than enough, and number two, you're really only getting just a couple extra points for a massive dump in plus the skills. I mean, if I reset my character again real quick here, just to give you an idea, with 1 point, I'm sitting at 65%, right? If I dump every point that I have, so 19 more points, if I dump 19 more points into this ability, I go from 65 to 72. So what is that? 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72. So for 19 additional skill points, I got what? 5, 6, 7? I got 7%. So did 19 skill points seem worth 7% resist all for my minions? It really didn't, did it? The last thing that we need to talk about for this ability is who it works on. So what does summon resist actually work on? Does it work on everything that the Necromancer summons, no matter what it is, or is there a specific list? And the answer is yes, there is a specific list. Summon resistance only works on Necromancer summons. It does not work on any other summon that you might cast. Like, for instance, let's say if you had Spirit Wolf charges. Spirit Wolves are a summon, right? So if you summon Spirit Wolf on a Necromancer, they do not gain the effect of summon resistance. And even if you were like a Druid and you somehow had summon resistance as an O skill, which doesn't exist, by the way, it does not apply to the Druid summons either. The only things that summon resistance apply to are the skeletons, the mages, the clay golem, the blood golem, the iron golem, the fire golem, and it does not apply to the revives. The revives do not get summon resistance, and I think this is due in part to the fact that revives have their own resistances based upon what you revived them from. So whereas the skeletons don't really have any resistances, in fact, I'm pretty sure if I click on the necro skeletons, let me just double check here. Yes, they do not have any resistances at all. So unlike the golems, which have base resistances, These guys don't have any resistances at all. So applying the summon resistance to them is very important, because if you don't have summon resistance with skeletons, they're sitting at 0 and they're taking full damage from everything. And that's why the skeletons, the skeletal mages, and the just tend to die extremely quickly without summon resistance. Whereas the revives are being revived specifically from a monster that has his own resistances. So, like, for instance, if you summon a monster that's immune to cold, that a monster is always going to be immune to cold, even as a revive. So they don't really need the summon resistance as much as the skeletons do, which basically have nothing. And that pretty much covers the entire skill. What was that? 10 minutes? Not bad. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when we're just talking about an ability as simple as summon resistance. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And as always, keep watching.